Hey, what the hell is going on, everybody? Welcome to the latest and greatest edition of the greatest sports podcast in this hemisphere. I'm Sean McCabe, along with the one and the only James Koglick. James, how the hell are you today?
I'm freezing. We're in Florida, and it's 50 degrees.
Yeah,
what the hell's going on?
I don't understand it either, man. This is why we live in Florida, to get away from this kind of stuff. But
I grew up with the cold for 20 years, and I couldn't take it anymore. I'm down here, and it's freaking cold.
Yeah. Hey, be sure to like us on Facebook. Maybe share our podcast to your page. Hey, if you like what we're doing, tell your friends who also like sports and have them give us a listen. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, and most easily, you can listen to us through iTunes and through the iPhone podcast app. Maybe give us a rating, a 5-star rating. That'd be great. Or you could just say, screw you, Sean. I ain't sharing your shit. I'm only going to listen. And you know what? I'm perfectly okay with that, too. We have an absolutely loaded show today, as we always do. The return of Aaron Rodgers, the departure of Wentz, the two biggest moves in baseball so far. But first, it's time for my opening rant.
Your number one source for sports.
Who I can't stand? Kevin Durant.
He looks like Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had a kid.
Now, who can argue with that?
I hate Boston.
I'm the biggest Miami Heat hater you'll ever meet.
I just don't understand where you're getting your bogus information from.
What the hell are you even talking about?
Well, I'm sorry you're too freaking sensitive to handle the truth.
You think I'm crazy? I'm just getting warmed up.
You're now Between the Hashmarks with James Koglak and Sean McCabe.
You know how sometimes people speak way too soon, and after they speak, they realize, oh, wow, I just said something really, really dumb. But even though they said something really dumb, they put their name on it, and they want it to be so true just so they can be right. So they end up doubling down on the dumb thing they just said. I mean, our president actually does this a lot. The mainstream media does this just as much as our president. And over the last 2 days, I have witnessed every sports media outlet do this on this very topic that we are about to discuss. And this hasn't just been over the last 2 days, but this is about once a year, every single year, for like the past 7, 8, or 9 years. Tom Brady is done. He's washed up. He's too old. He doesn't have it anymore. Father Time is undefeated. You would think by now that the media would have learned their lesson, but nope, they absolutely have not. And it appears that my colleague James is about to make the same exact mistake. Now this isn't me being a Tom Brady fanboy.
You sure?
I'm 100% positive because I'm going to provide you with some incredible numbers. Before last week's loss to Miami, ESPN showed a statistic of QBs under pressure this year and their passer rating when under pressure from the defense. Tom Brady's passer rating was more than modest under pressure, first in the NFL with a 123.3 passer rating under pressure. Second was Carson Wentz with 90.5. He's no longer playing. He obviously got hurt. Third was Case Keenum with an 81.0 passer rating under pressure. And finishing up the top 10 of the list, I'm not going to go through all the names, but 10th was Russell Wilson with 65.6 passer rating under pressure. So there is a 42.3 point differential between Brady and the current second, the active second player, which is Case Keenum, not Carson Wentz because he's injured. And the difference between Keenum and Wilson is only 15.4. So there's a bigger difference between 1 and number 2 than number 2 and currently number 9. Second, Brady and the Patriots have struggled in Miami. Tom Brady's passer rating in Miami throughout his entire career is 89.98. For his entire career as a whole, it's 97.6. And you're saying, Sean, that's not a huge difference at all. But hold up. This season, quarterbacks that have 97 passer rating include Matthew Stafford, Kirk Cousins and Phillip Rivers. Quarterback that has 89 is Jameis Winston. You're telling me that there isn't a huge difference between Stafford, Cousins, and Rivers to Jameis Winston? If you're out of your freaking mind. And in those 16 games that Brady has had in Miami, the Patriots are actually 7-9. It's a tough test going down to Miami. And Brady and Belichick both admitted before last Monday night's game that it is always a dogfight in Miami. Yeah, sometimes they blow them out. Sometimes Miami blows them out. But just year in, year out, it's just a tough matchup. Third, Brady isn't a stat whore. However the team wins, he's totally cool with. Yes, he wasn't completely stellar in Buffalo, but he did more than enough to get the job done to win the game. Obviously, he did not do that against Miami the other day, but if they got that onside kick at the end, there's a very good chance that the Patriots are going to score a touchdown with a minute left or whatever, and then we're at a tie game, and then you never know what happens in the overtime. You just never know. Fourth, usually when New England has an embarrassing primetime loss, or just an embarrassing loss in general, especially over the last few years, it does wonders for them because it gives Bill Belichick to harp on the team about something. Take, for example, 2014, the Kansas City Monday night loss. They lost like 41-14, something like that.
I knew this game was coming up.
And people were talking about, oh, Brady's done. Oh, you going to start Garoppolo over Brady next week?
I was one of them.
And Belichick is just like, you're dumb. We're on to Cincinnati. And then last year, the shutout against Buffalo. Buffalo shut him out. I mean, it wasn't against Tom Brady, but it was against the Patriots, and that allowed Bill Belichick to say, hey, we're not good enough. Buffalo's a lot better than you. We need to work harder. And they won the Super Bowl both those years where they had those embarrassing losses. Not that this was a super embarrassing loss, but it was the primetime game. Everybody was talking about it. But this game here, my final point, this game here is an isolated incident. New England, they are completely decimated on offense and defense. There's no Gronkowski, he's the guy that if you just need to throw it up. He's got the big arms, he's the big body. It's kind of impossible to guard him. He's the guy to go to. They're missing offensive linemen, and they just lost another one, Marcus Cannon. He just went on the IR, so that's going to be continuous problems for them. And they only had 25 yards rushing last game. Against the game in Buffalo, they had like 160. So obviously Brady doesn't need to have all those touchdowns when they're rushing for 160 yards. Obviously he needs to have those touchdowns when they only rush for 25. But because they only ran for 25 and they were losing, they were playing a one-dimensional style and predictable, which, I mean, yeah, Tom Brady's dealt with that situation before and has been super successful in that situation before. But if you're a Patriots fan, you shouldn't be worried at all. But if you dislike the Patriots, I know you want this to be true, but it's not. This is an isolated incident, and you should be terrified. James, is Father Time actually catching up with Brady?
Absolutely. Now, is he still a top 5 quarterback or a top 2 quarterback? Of course. Always. I mean, he's Tom Brady. He's the GOAT. But we have to be realistic here. Now, Brady, not just over the last game, but over the last 2 games, Brady has 1 touchdown thrown for 3 interceptions. That is not Brady-like. Now, you can say he didn't have Gronk. Yeah, they won a Super Bowl without Gronk. He doesn't have good wide receivers. Last time I checked, Brandon Cooks was a first-round draft pick, and the Patriots traded for him with a first-round draft pick. They started 2-2, and they've looked better after that. But just one sneaky stat here. Take out the Texans game because we've ragged on the Texans defense all year long. They're terrible. Take that game out of the first 6, and now we're talking about 5 of the first 6 games. Brady has 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions. Are those Brady-like numbers? Nothing about that sounds like Brady to me. Now, Brady has always been able to win without his teammates, without wide receivers. Everybody says he makes everybody better. He does. But this has been more than an isolated incident, I think, because now we're talking about 2 weeks in a row. We're talking about how he started the season slow, and 9 touchdowns to 5 interceptions in 5 of the first 6 games. Just if I just told you those stats and asked you to give me a quarterback, Tom Brady's not even somewhat coming to your mind. Those just aren't Brady stats. Now, he's 40, and Father Time, has it defeated him yet? No. But Father Time is undefeated, and I think the media has jumped the gun. But I think there is a little cause for concern, because Brady is not the same player that he used to be. These games where he's missing players and there are players injured, even with talent, Brandon Cooks was on the field last night and he didn't do it, or 2 nights ago, I should say, but he didn't do anything. He was completely inconsistent in that game. Tom Brady needs help at this point in his career. He can't do it all by himself. And because he has been all season, I think he's a little fatigued at this point. His defense has not been the defense we're used to seeing out of the Patriots. And I think that there's more to it. So should you be concerned? I think that there's a little cause for concern. Should you be concerned this year? Probably not. I mean, we all know the Steelers and the Patriots are going to face off in the AFC Championship game this year. I mean, we should just skip every game until then because we know what's going to happen. But I think moving into next year, this is a little cause for concern because he is only getting older. He's not getting any younger. And his numbers are starting to reflect it. Now, one thing he's been able to be successful with is because of he's so smart. He's insanely smart. So you said about the pressure, that he's got 124 quarterback rating, I think it was, under pressure.
123.3.
Okay,
yes.
So close enough. That's because of his smarts. He knows, all right, this guy's coming to me, this guy's coming to me, this guy's coming to me. I know who's blitzing me. I'm going to get the ball off to this guy in 1.7 seconds. And he does it, and he's good at it. And that's Tom Brady being smart. But I think when he's got to roll out of the pocket and he doesn't have the talent around him that he used to, at least on defense. His defense was able to make a lot of stops, and then the Patriots were known for what? Holding the ball, running the ball, and setting Tom Brady up to be successful year in and year out, and they controlled the ball every game, and that was the Patriots' forte, and they don't have that anymore, and I think that's why it's starting to catch up with Brady.
So you're saying his numbers are down?
Over the course of those first 6 games,
okay,
yes, and then over the last 2 games, over the course of the season, they look somewhat similar, but he had a phenomenal 8-game stretch.
Well, that's what I'm talking about here, because he's first in the league in passing yards, he's first in the league in QB rating, he's second in the league in touchdowns, he's second in the league in completion percentage, he's first in the league in yards per game, he's like 4th in the league in yards per attempt. Like, this is, if you want to say this is a down year for Brady, I'll freaking take it.
Well, this is what I want to show you, and I know that you guys can't see it, but I want you to see it here, is what I'm looking at. So we had 3 touchdowns in week 2. You take away the 5 in week 3 against that porous Texans defense. 2, 1, 2. And through 6 weeks, take out the 1, he's only has 8 touchdowns to 5 interceptions through that period of time.
But in that Texans game, they weren't completely decimated like they are now. They still had J.J. Watt. I believe they still had Merciless. I think Merciless actually got hurt in that game. And they still had Cushing, I believe, also. And
I'm sorry, that's 2 interceptions. It would be 5 for the year.
Okay, yeah.
It would be 5 for the year. So even 8 touchdowns to 2 interceptions, those just don't seem like Brady numbers to me. Through a 5-game stretch, those numbers should be higher. And then you have another 2-game stretch later in the season with 1 touchdown to 3 interceptions. I mean, those just don't sound like Brady to me.
No, I mean, yeah, he's gonna run into some patches like that. I mean, some defenses when you get pressure on Brady, that's what's gonna happen. But you can't just look at the Bills game and say that's not a successful game. Yes, he had 1 interception and no touchdowns. But the team won the game. He led the scoring drives. They won 23-3.
I was gonna say, I think it was 23-3.
Yeah, so I mean, you like that game, like it doesn't even matter how well he played because he played well enough for the team to win. They ran the ball well. The defense actually played well in the red zone. The defense played well. Has really played well since that Panthers loss until 2 nights ago. I mean, but they're just so banged up, and you can't expect him to come back every single time. And I do want to mention, he's played 6. Patriots have had 6 games against teams that are currently 500 or better, and they're 4-2 in those games right now.
And like I said, not that Brady has tailed off, But I think that at this point in his career, at this point in the season, not having the talent around him that he used to, he doesn't have a Randy Moss. Brandon Cooks is good.
Yeah, no,
but he's not Randy. Randy Moss is Randy Moss. So I mean, you can't compare Gronk to Randy Moss.
No.
I mean, I would take Randy Moss over Gronk in a heartbeat. That's just who he is. But that being said, I think the fatigue is catching up with him, and I think that moving into next year, we are going to continue to see Brady play more smart. And what I'm trying to say is, you go back even 2 years ago, I don't think that they get blown out in Miami last night. I think Brady's more mobile 2 years ago. I think that...
Well, funny enough, not to interrupt you, but the Patriots are 1-4 in their last five trips.
Games into Miami.
Yeah, so it's like, I mean, things happen, and it's like Brady has his quarterback rating in those games were 85.7, which is a loss, 69.7, a loss, 76.3, a loss, 130.4, which was last year, obviously a win, and last night 59.5, which is a loss. So, I mean, it's just, to me, it's those games in Miami are just dogfights and they're just bad. And if you just look down every single game, he has some great
consistent
games. Yeah, I mean, he did actually, it's funny enough, he did put up a 158.3, which is the highest you can have in a game for a quarterback back in, I think it was 07, that year, the almost undefeated season. But to me, it's just this is an isolated incident. Yes, I know the Buffalo game he struggled, but they still won the game, and he led the drives. He was actually 21 for 30 in that game against Buffalo, so that's a good game. Yeah, he did have the interception. Yes, that is a little blemish there, and no touchdowns. Oh my God, no touchdowns. But this is the kind of game that he used to win. The game that he used to play when they were winning when they won their first 3 Super Bowls. He wasn't the stat machine that he is now.
Let me ask you something.
Okay.
When you watch the Patriot games,
Yes.
does it not look like Tom Brady is getting older?
No, it absolutely does not.
I guess
to me, it looked like I knew going into this game that this is going to be a tough game.
I'm saying to go over the course of the whole season.
No. He doesn't look, because even if you want to look at the games where he didn't really play that amazing, the Kansas City game, I mean, he still led drives that ended up in touchdowns. It was a running back that scored it. It was a rushing touchdown. Normally it's not 3 rushing touchdowns for Mike Gillislee. Normally it would be 2 for Brady and 1 for the running back, something like that. I mean, those are just the kind of games. I mean, we're an onside kick away, and I mean, obviously it's very unlikely to get an onside kick, but it's just like it was that kind of that game where it's like, if you're a non-Patriots fan, here we go again. It's just a matter of time before the Patriots end up winning this game.
Well, and like I said, Brady right now, without Aaron Rodgers playing, is the best quarterback in the league. At this point in his career, I would take Aaron Rodgers because he's younger, he's more mobile.
I mean, yeah, so would I.
But he's still a top 2 quarterback. But to me, watching the Patriots every weekend now, I may not sit down and watch the whole game, but I definitely will watch part of it. I have Patriot fans who live in my house, so it is on my television. And he does seem to look like he's aging, but the difference is, and for the 8-game stretch where he really was able to somewhat not inflate the numbers, but make his numbers look respectable for the year. And like you said, if this is a down year, I'll take it.
Yeah, respectable.
So
in air quotes.
so I think that the smarts that Brady has and the way that he studies the game and puts in the work outside of the football field is what is making him successful now at 40.
All right, who is correct? Is James correct with Tom Brady? Yeah, Father Time is actually is kicking his ass right now, or am I right? And everybody's just freaking out. But coming up next, 2 of the biggest baseball moves already happening. Coming up on BTH.
You're listening to Between the Hashmarks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe, brought to you by an unknown sponsor we don't have yet. Now back to the show.
And we're back, and guess what? We just went into, is Tom Brady falling off a cliff, or is he just still chilling? He's still playing in the NFL. Roger Goodell's news broke. He's going to be done after 2023, which is good for us.
Good for everybody.
Yes, for every fans, owners, players,
yep.
Everybody. So, but with that being said, we're going to jump right into the 2 biggest signings for baseball this year. And Shohei Ohtani, the most prized free agent outside of the MLB this year.
Probably in all of baseball, really.
As a free agent, yes, I would say. Signed with the Los Angeles Angels.
Yeah, I know this pissed you off.
And you know what? It should piss you off too, because The only reason, of course I wanted Ohtani to play, but two things rub me the wrong way about this guy already, and I'm glad he's not a Yankee. One, why say that you don't want to play in a big market and then choose Los Angeles? I know it's the Angels, they're the secondary team, but it's still Los Angeles. You're still in California, in a major media market. Number two, why say that you want to play only on the West Coast and then take meetings with the Yankees and with the Red Sox and with the Cubs? That to me makes no sense. It seems like this guy doesn't know what he wants as of right now, and I really, they call him the Babe Ruth of Japan, but what am I supposed to think of this? I mean,
I think the reason why he took those meetings with Boston and New York and Chicago is because they have large Japanese populations, and that he would be able to fit into those kinds of organizations and those kind of environments because there's a large Japanese population. And I mean, that's why I think he wanted to go on the West Coast, because Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, San Diego, they have those populations. It's a little more comfortable for him. I'm not upset at all that the Red Sox didn't get him. I never expected the Red Sox to really make a huge push. I know every team made some sort of push towards him, but I never expected him to actually sign with the Red Sox. I know the Yankees, they had high hopes that he actually would.
Well, they actually they made a couple of trades last year and took back international bonus money in order to make a run at Ohtani. So the Yankees have been preparing to make a run at this guy for more than a year now.
Because you've been telling me about him for a few months now, and I heard about him way back in spring. Completely forgot about him. Completely slipped my mind until you told me about him a couple months ago. I was like, oh yeah, this guy right here, he's gonna be a hell of a player. But I thought it was a huge signing for the Angels. And then with the news late last night, I texted you, hey, Ohtani's hurt. What's going on? And yeah, no, this could be absolutely devastating for the Angels.
Tommy John surgery?
I don't think it's Tommy John. Is it Tommy John yet? Because I know he has it's the UCL, and it could lead to it if they don't treat it properly.
Yes, and most of the time, and I don't want to go into assumptions here, but 9 out of 10 pitchers have to get Tommy John surgery when they have this issue.
I mean, honestly, the Angels should just bench him, let him do it,
let him heal naturally.
Yeah, exactly. Let him heal naturally. Because they're only paying $2.5 million for him, so over the next couple of years. So it's not like you're losing that much.
Big money.
They did lose $20 million to add the upfront fee. I think they had to pay Japan, the Japanese league. Mm-hmm. So okay, 20.
The Nippon hand fighters.
But I don't think it's a huge loss of financially for them. But it's a huge loss as far as how the Angels are going to be. I thought the Angels this was going to make them a contender for the AL West. But obviously, I know you didn't think that at all.
No, I don't. And two things I want to mention. First is that the one bright side about this, not the bright side about the injury, but he could actually play as a designated hitter as long as it's not affecting his arm, and he doesn't have to pitch the first year.
Yeah.
But going into the second thing really quickly, because I want to move on to the second signing, or should I say addition, because this was not a signing. The Angels could never win with Mike Trout, and he's the best player in baseball.
Yeah, no, that is something that always bothers me about Mike Trout. Like, why is the best player in baseball not, like, he's never in the playoffs? Like, we see Harper, we see Judge, we see, I mean, there's just plenty of players out, Kershaw. There's plenty of players that are cornerstones of the MLB, but they're not the best player. And it's like, where's the best player at?
And he's never in the playoffs, and that's what scares me about this signing, is because is this really going to put them over the top, or is there bigger issues in Anaheim, or Los Angeles, should I say? The Los Angeles Angels, get them confused.
Yeah, I mean, they still technically are the Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, but I mean, that's just technically speaking.
You lost my train of thought here. So, but is this bigger than? Is there management issues here? Are there coaching issues here? Because you do have the best player in baseball. At the very minimum, once in his career, he should have made the playoffs at this point. He's got multiple MVPs, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And you can't make the playoffs. So what really is Ohtani going to do? What is he going to bring to this club? I'm not sure. I think there are bigger issues here. But I do want to move on to the bigger signing, in my opinion.
Let's do it.
And that is not a signing, but a trade. The New York Yankees acquire Giancarlo Stanton for basically a piece of lint out of my pocket and Starlin Castro.
Yeah.
So, I love it.
Yeah, of course
I
you
love
do.
it.
Of course you do, and I freaking hate it because this is totally predictable, totally Yankees, totally Marlins, and like it's just like, oh yeah, like Jeter, who ends up working with the Marlins, ends up sending away the best player that they have to the Yankees. Hopefully the MLB will review this and like, yeah, Joe Torre approves.
Basically.
Yeah.
But little stat here. Stanton, Sanchez, Judge, over the last 162 games played each one full season. Stanton 59 home runs, Judge 52, and Sanchez 58. So that's a total of 169. The Boston Red Sox as a team last year, 162 games, had 168 home runs.
Yeah,
so
very good.
The middle of the Yankees lineup had more than the entire Red Sox team. But
I mean, if you want to go home runs, I can do strikeouts. I mean, I'm pretty sure the three of them had more strikeouts
like 500
than the entire Red Sox team too. I don't know if that's true or not.
No, I wouldn't put it past it because I think Judge and Stanton close to 400 combined. That's the one scary thing. But a 3-4-5 Judge, Stanton, Sanchez in any order, you can't go around to anybody because who you're gonna face. Then you got to go to Didi. Then you got to go to Gardner. I mean, the list goes on.
The lineup's loaded.
Yeah, basically, they still have the best farm system in America. They have this number 2 overall prospect in Gleyber Torres. You still have, I think he's number 24 prospect. He's number 2 in our system. Clint Frazier, center fielder. Possibly Justice Sheffield, who's a great pitching prospect. He might take the field for us this year.
Greg Bird. I mean, I know he's a player, but I consider him still a prospect.
You also have Severino as a 1, a Tanaka as a 2, Gray as a 3. I mean, that's as good as any 1-2-3 in the MLB, in my opinion. And then you still have the best bullpen. Adding Stanton, I mean, this is mind-blowing to me because they didn't need him. They have a right fielder, but they go out and add the NL MVP. And the craziest part about all of this is that Mr. Steinbrenner said it himself. The Yankees are not done. They wanted to get under the $197 million tax threshold this year for their payroll. Roughly after the Stanton trade, $177 million. They have another $20 million they could spend this offseason within trades, free agents, however they want to do it, but the Yankees are not done adding after Stanton, and they have now, with the Stanton trade, have gone to the World Series frontrunners at 5-1.
You think if say the Yankees don't make any more signings over the winter meetings, obviously they will. I mean, every team's going to sign a bunch of players. I mean, all the players are going to get signed. But say they don't make any more moves. Are they really better than the Astros?
I believe so.
Okay.
I believe so. And that's because if you put Clint Frazier at center field and use Gardner as your designated hitter, and you have an outfield of Judge, Clint Frazier, and Giancarlo Stanton, you have Gary Sanchez behind the plate, who I think will be a better defensive catcher. He's already a great offensive catcher. With Aaron Boone and not Joe Girardi as the manager, I think that will be a plus side. And you got Didi, who batted over 300 as your shortstop. Gleyber Torres is probably going to fill in the third base. And you have Greg Bird, like you said, at first base, and he is the most underrated player on the whole Yankees lineup.
It's scary for me when he starts heating up.
So if all of those players, Stanton said it best, 2 things. 1, I feel bad for the baseballs. And 2, you can't pitch around to anybody, and you're going to have to be able to go through them all. And I don't know if teams will be able to do that night in and night out, and I think that's why it puts the Yankees as the World Series favorite. But coming up next, which injury is bigger? Carson Wentz leaving the field or Aaron Rodgers coming back onto the field? You'll find.
You're listening to Between the Hashmarks with James Koklak and Sean McCabe, brought to you by an unknown sponsor we don't have yet. Now back to the show.
And welcome back to Between the Hashmarks. We just went over some interesting stuff with Shohei Ohtani, Giancarlo Stanton. Almost said Mike Stanton, but he did change his name. Now we are talking about what is more important with the NFL, what has the bigger impact, Aaron Rodgers coming back to the Green Bay Packers or Carson Wentz leaving the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm just going to jump in and tell you what I think right now. Aaron Rodgers coming back is way more significant because the Eagles are already in the playoffs, and Nick Foles, yeah, he had that amazing year. He's nowhere near that amazing year that he had, but to me, he is a quarterback that can do the things maybe even a little better than somebody like Case Keenum. So Case Keenum, I mean, is leading a team. I believe the Vikings are 10-3 right now.
He has the best college season ever as a quarterback.
Well, there you go. So Nick Foles, I think he can play like that. They're not changing the offense for him. I think they're going to win a couple games. They might even win one playoff game. I don't see him winning two at all. I could see him losing the first one, but the Eagles are still relevant. They're still a good team. They still have a good defensive line. They still have playmakers all across the offense. Great running backs, great receivers. But Aaron Rodgers coming back to the Packers. The Packers are, whether they make the playoffs or not, a top 5 team. They have a tough schedule coming ahead. They go, I think it's to Carolina. It's against Minnesota. And, I mean, it's just, those 2 games right there are going to be super gnarly to watch. I'm really rooting. I find myself rooting for the Packers in this situation because it's going to be a great story if Aaron Rodgers comes back from injury, ends up whooping the Panthers, ends up whooping the Vikings against.
He's going to.
Yeah, and the Packers are going to make the playoffs. I mean,
he's motivated.
They could win these 3 games and still not make the playoffs because I mean the teams are ahead of them. So they definitely need some help, but they can definitely win these next 3 games. And if Aaron Rodgers is in the playoffs, watch out. I mean, we saw it last year when he did against Dallas. It's honestly just amazing to watch him play the game of football. We saw what he did against the Giants as well. It's just truly amazing, and I honestly can't wait for this weekend of football. James, what do you think? What's more important? What's bigger for the NFL?
I'm curious. Why did Giancarlo Stanton change his name to Giancarlo? It was Mike?
Yeah. Originally it was Mike.
Yeah, that's what I actually remembered that, and there was a pitcher named Mike Stanton, I'm pretty sure, who actually played for the Yankees and a bunch of other teams. I'm curious why he changed it. But what do I think? Carson Wentz going down, I think they're equally as important because of their respective situations, but if I have to choose one or the other, I would say Carson Wentz. Not because, well, the Eagles are already in the playoffs, but their Super Bowl title hopes just literally they're not in the toilet. They were flushed down the toilet, they're through the drains, and they're in the sewer at this point. So they're nowhere to be found. You'd have to dig through every sewer in Philadelphia to find their Super Bowl title hopes. Good luck. Without Wentz, this team is mediocre at best. We've already questioned, are they the real deal? With Wentz, without Wentz, I mean, questionable at best to be a good team. Rodgers coming back, it looks like if they can make the playoffs, my prediction might actually come to fruition.
There you go.
Packers-Steelers. I did have the Packers winning the Super Bowl this year, and I'm starting Rodgers in my fantasy team this year for the championship. So Rodgers literally could beat any team at any time, at any field, anywhere, no matter. It could be negative 50 degrees out, and Aaron Rodgers is going to be out there in short sleeves, running around like a madman, throwing sidearms at 35-degree angles, and completing them to Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams. So, and you know what's crazy about this whole thing is I think Aaron Rodgers now, after seeing Adams thrive with Brett Hundley, I think he's got a little bit more trust in him. Like, wow, you know what? This guy was my number 3, but he just went off with Brett Hundley. What can he do with me?
Well, I mean, those games that Jordy Nelson was out, I mean, Adams was the guy that he was going to in that game against Dallas, and in that game against it was Atlanta, I believe. I mean, it was all about Devontae Adams in those games. So yeah, no, it's just more weapons for him, more confidence in him. I totally agree. But it's such a shame to see Carson Wentz go down like that, and what's crazy to me is he went down, got hurt, and then he threw a touchdown like 2 plays later. And
I've seen so many memes about how he got up, threw a touchdown, and Dak couldn't throw 3 touchdowns without Zeke for 3 games or whatever. People don't realize Tyrone Smith might be the MVP of the league too. So
yeah, honestly, but yeah, no, Carson Wentz, and it's crazy too because if this was an injury that was on that contact, then he's going to be out into next year. Yep. But they're the Eagles. They're very hopeful, and this is what they're reporting, that he did not tear the ACL on that play. It was just after that he actually tore it on the play. It wasn't from the contact. So that should be good.
He buckled up on walking back to the bench, and it may have happened then because somebody said his knee actually tightened up and locked walking to the bench.
So if that is the case, then that is great news for the Eagles because he's going to be starting week 1 next season.
Not necessarily. Dr. Andrews came out today, said it's a 9 to 12 month recovery time. And if it's 9 months on the nose, you're going to be looking at Carson Wentz coming back for week 1. And he'll just be hitting that window more often than not, unless you're a freak athlete like... I can't even think of one right now because they're so rare. LeBron James. LeBron James. If LeBron James tears his ACL, he'll be back in 9 months. Most players, it will take 12. Adrian Peterson was 9, but he's also a freak athlete. There are not many players who come back from an ACL injury in 9 months. It is closer to the 12 months because a major surgery. I would assume, and I would take a wild guess to say that Carson Wentz is probably going to miss the first 4 weeks or so. Unless they have to put him on PUP, then he would miss I think it's the first 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So there is a chance that Carson Wentz will be out for the first 6 weeks next year. If I had to put my money on it against the spread, something like that, Carson Wentz will end up on the PUP to start the season.
Okay, quickly. We have Green Bay sitting in 9th place in the NFC. And we have, 9th place, 7-6. The 6th seed, the Atlanta Falcons, are 8-5, but they have the tiebreaker over the Packers at the head-to-head. Not to mention, I believe they have a better conference record here. Yes, they do. Can the Packers surpass the Lions? Can they get past the Cowboys? Can they get past the Seahawks? And can they sneak into these playoffs? Because, man, it looks tough. Carolina is 2 games up on them. Atlanta would be the team.
Carolina is going to be 1 game because they're going to face off this weekend.
That's right.
And Aaron Rodgers is going to torch them. And they got a tough defense, but Aaron Rodgers is motivated. And when he is motivated, there's only one other quarterback that's scarier when he's motivated, and that's Tom Brady.
So do they make the playoffs, yes or no?
Yes, I believe so. The Seahawks are on a downward spiral. That defense is not the same with Cam Chancellor and Richard Sherman. The Jacksonville Jaguars are known for running the ball, and they are known for defense.
And Bortles lit them up.
And did you see what Michael Bennett said on March 23rd?
Yeah.
Every game is a 1-point game unless you play the Jaguars. Then it's a 50-point game.
Yep.
And they got beat. So, the Seahawks are definitely on the downward spiral.
Okay.
Atlanta Falcons, they're only 1 game up. I could see the Packers winning out and Atlanta losing 2 of its last 3 games because they are such an inconsistent team. I don't trust Atlanta, and Julio Jones is not 100%. Matt Ryan is not the MVP candidate he was last year. And Carolina, they're hit or miss too. We've talked about all season how Cam Newton is inconsistent. Is he ever going to be that star quarterback that we always thought he was? Yeah, well, it's time to show it because now you have Aaron Rodgers coming for you, and we all know that the Packers are. If I had to put a bet on are the Packers going to win the next 3 games or go 2-1 or 1-2, I'm putting it on 3-0 because Aaron Rodgers is motivated to get into the playoffs, and I think they end up making it, sliding in at the 6th seed.
The Falcons' next 3 games are at Tampa Bay on Monday night, at New Orleans, 1:00 game, and home against the Panthers. I think they'll beat Tampa.
And I think they'll lose the next 2.
And I could see them losing the next 2. So that would put Carolina in. That would put New Orleans in. And yeah, that would. If Green Bay wins 2 of them, if they win 2, they still would not have. They would have to win all 3 because Atlanta has the tiebreaker as far as the conference goes and as far as head-to-head.
If I had to put my money on something, Packers making it or not, I think they're making it looking at that because the Seahawks are on a downward spiral. They still have the Rams to play, and that's every time they play the Rams, they seem to lose. So, but Packers, hopefully they can win the Super Bowl still. I am really excited to see Aaron Rodgers hit the field.
Yeah, no, just my opinion here. I think they will. I really want the Packers to make the playoffs, but I just think there's too many hurdles to climb because their schedule. We mentioned it: Carolina, then Minnesota, and then Detroit. I still feel like Detroit feels like they're still in this thing, but nobody's talking about them at all. And their schedule. It's not terribly difficult. They got Chicago, Cincinnati, and then Green Bay. So we're not even mentioning them as part of this contest here. Dallas, we're not even mentioning them as part of this contest.
Something we have not mentioned that has been mentioned over the past couple of years or so that Aaron Rodgers definitely hears is everybody puts all this praise on him. He should have more than 1 Super Bowl.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think that he is motivated, and if they could slide into the playoffs this year, just sneak in at the 6th seed, it's theirs to lose. So, but coming up next on Friday, we have our usual picks against the spread. Well, of course, Denver crapped on me this weekend.
And New England.
Both teams. So I definitely had 2 losses on the week. We're going to go back to our DraftKings lineups that we missed last week. It is the Fantasy Championship weeks, so we will have fantasy news. And yeah, guess what? More MLB winter meeting news with some more big signings that will happen over the course of the week right here on BTH.